Goal of life, ways and means. Goal of life. The goal and the path. We do not properly understand what effect our activities in the world produce upon the atmosphere of the godly region. When joined with the inner feelings of the heart, our activities create impressions in the cosmos and they affect the human mind. They grow more and more powerful by the action of the cosmic energy, and the hearts of the people, when hit by them, take in their effect and begin to produce thoughts and more thoughts. In this way, we have been spoiling the cosmos ever since our birth. This is the reason why we were never without a thought, even for a moment. But those who rise above the cosmos can no doubt become almost thoughtless. When a man goes on with his usual work of whatever nature it might be, in the sense of the duty, having no weight or impression of it upon his heart, he spoils neither himself nor the cosmos. That is why Lord Krishna insisted so much upon the recognition of the true sense of duty. We have thus been spoiling the cosmos ever since, while nature, the supreme force, is ever engaged in the cleaning of all these things. At times when it gathers heavily, a special personality is brought down to do the work. An atmosphere of bhoga is created all through, which causes suffering and affliction over humanity. Special means are also adopted for the purpose in the form of wars, diseases, and heavenly calamities. A great power of that type is already at work today to accomplish the task which is similar to that which Lord Krishna came down for. I'll go ahead, sir.
Yes.
People often say that they are too busy with their private affairs to spare any time for puja and upasana, but that the busiest man has the greatest leisure is a common saying. To my mind, a man has more time at his disposal than he has work for. Service and sacrifice are the two instruments to build up the temple of spirituality. Love is, of course, the foundation. Any kind of service done selflessly is helpful. Service carries with it a sense of worship, and we should be as busy with it as we are with our daily routine of life. The easiest method for it would be to think everything one has to do as the order of God and treat it as one's duty. We must remember that everything we have in this world has come down to us from God. Our fellow beings are also His creation. He is the master of everything and we are all His children, no matter if a few of them are specially entrusted to our charge. In this way, we shall be relieved of the feelings of undue attachment. If this feeling becomes deep-rooted, one will be serving them with a sense of duty and at the same time be remembering the great master as well. This will finally develop into the habit of constant remembrance.
Could you slow slightly?
Sure, sir.
So that give some time for those ideas to settle.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Because these are all practical things. If we slowly dwell on these thoughts, it will help our meditation.
Right, sir.
We seem to be knowing all these things, but we tend to forget them, and then once we reread them, the memory gets revived, and then along with the revival of the memory of these ideas, they also get strengthened in our subconscious mind. So it helps our meditation will become more natural. So we'll use it as an opportunity to revive all these ideas and then reinforce those ideas to make deeper impression in our mind actually.
True, sir. True,
Okay.
very true. The goal of life can easily be achieved if you are sincerely devoted to it, having in mind the idea of the great master all through. By devotion, we establish a link between us and the master, which serves as a path for us to march upon. All that we have to do is to keep it clear and free from thorns and shrubs which might be impediments in our way. Earnestness of purpose and intensity of devotion help to keep the path clear. When the path is clear, the heart pushes one forward on it. The impediments comprise chiefly of the conflicting ideas which keep on haunting the mind. A temporary lull created by the effect of meditation means a step onwards. A temporary lull created by the effect of meditation means a step onwards. As one proceeds on it, one will experience that the conflicting ideas begin to disappear. When that attains a state of permanency, the thought of closeness with the God gets into prominence. Numerous ways are prescribed for securing realization, each one suited to a peculiar taste or mentality of the individual. A man of the lowest standard who cannot give his mind up to meditation may, however, on account of his inner grossness, take these solid things to start with and begin worshipping images with the bhava of Almighty, of course. But unfortunately, they usually take the image itself as God, omitting altogether the idea of any higher being. A little advanced among them are generally considered to be those who keep in view the imaginary form similar to one they have fixed their mind upon, and who got on with the usual routine of mechanical worship of offering flowers, sandal, and incense to them in their imagination. This they call as Manasik Puja and consider it to be an advanced stage. As a matter of fact, they are no better than those of former type. The result in both the cases would exactly be the same, and they finally would become solid like rock. So Manasik Puja done in that form also is grosser, sir.
In the morning, I was, after meditation, we were having a small discussion with Ravi and Haraprasad and all that. So I was, an idea came to me and then I started telling them, people think that the thoughts which are arising in their mind, they're different from the mind itself. That is not true. Mind itself takes the form of those thoughts. So I told them the idea of chameleon. You must know in nature we have a lizard which is called chameleon or octopus. Octopus, if you, wherever it stays, these the pigments on
Tentacles.
the surface of the skin of the octopus, it takes the shape of the colors and the surrounding and it merges in that. So our mind is similarly like that, actually. So, so suppose if it is standing next to God and it looks to God, the mind becomes like a God. And if you feel that the God is subtle nature, all pervasive, the mind becomes subtle and all pervasive. Suppose the mind thinks that the stone itself is God, the mind also will become like a stone itself. I mean, whatever it thinks, it becomes like that. It assumes that shape. That is the actually etymology of knowledge. I mean, the what do you call epistemology? You see, that means the theory of knowledge, how we come to know about knowledge or things. So in India, even modern science and our yogic psychology also, the mind actually, like suppose I'm looking at this phone, the mind flows out of my being, so-called, which is occupying a space, and then it engulfs this phone, and then the mind takes the shape of this phone, and along with the mind, the God or the Atman or the soul consciousness follows the mind, and it comes to know that this is called the phone. So mind actually takes the shape of the object which it cognizes. So when we are saying that divine light without luminosity, which is all pervasive, which has got divine qualities, and it is present in the heart, and then when we allow our mind to get absorbed in that thought, the mind takes that shape actually. So if they think that Shivalinga itself is God, that is a grosser thing. Shivalinga is a symbol. Or Venkateshwar Swami's statue in Tirupati is a symbol which represents God. If that symbol reminds you of God, that is the purpose which it should serve. But if you think that image itself is God, then your mind will become grosser. So that is the basic principle on which we have experiences. So if the master, who is himself absorbed in God, if he transmits the divine impulse, the mind will find it very easy to get absorbed in that divine light, and then slowly the destination or the nature of God becomes very clear to you, and then a stage comes when you become that actually, that yoga becomes achieved. You become one with God, and then the problem of life is solved. So this is a fundamental epistemology. That means knowledge of your perception. So if you say that the image itself is God, the mind becomes like that. But if you know that the image represents an all-pervasive God, and when you see the image and you remember the all-pervasiveness of God, then you're on the correct path. So that's why when we say Ram, Rama Rama, Jai Shri Ram, it doesn't mean the son of Dasharatha and all that. It means the all-pervasive God actually. So when in the army, when we were there, everybody don't say good morning, good evening, Jai Shri Ram, or like that they'll say. So it means all-pervasive divine nature actually. That's what we refer to. So if ideas are important, and God is of a subtle nature, he is not an object which can be grasped with senses, neither with the mind also. By imagining and thinking also you cannot grasp God. So, but we use the thinking to meditate, to purify the mind, so that a stage of purification is reached when it can penetrate the mystery and know God actually. That's the idea. Okay, you can go ahead now.
Bounden duty. To realize our goal of life is our bounden duty. Therefore, one should aspire for the highest peace, and other things should be secondary. Goal of life. Now about the goal of human life. Anything short of liberation cannot be taken as a goal of life, although there remains still a thought beyond it. We find but a few persons who have ever even liberation as their final goal of life, which represents the lowest rung in the spiritual flight. The problem of life remains totally unsolved if we are below this level. The goal of life means nothing but the point we have finally to arrive at it. It is, in other words, the reminiscence of our homeland or the primeval state of our present solid state of existence to which we have finally to return. It is only the idea of destination which we keep alive in our minds, and for that we practice devotion only as duty. The highest possible point of human approach is much beyond the sphere of Mahamaya, wherefrom avatars like Rama and Krishna have descended. Hence, a good deal about that level. It may be surprising to most of the readers, but it is a fact beyond doubt. The final point of approach is where every kind of force, power, activity, or even stimulus disappears and a man enters a state of complete negation, nothingness, or zero. Such is the extent of human achievement which a man should fix his eyes upon from the very beginning, if he wants to make the greatest progress on the path of realization. I'll go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Destination. The point we start from is the very point which corresponds closely with the destination. The point we start from is the very point which corresponds closely with the destination. Sir. Next page can.
Yeah. So here he's talking about, like, as we meditate on the heart, and heart being the spiritual.
No, the point we are starting is divine light, no? That itself is
divine light in the heart. Right?
Divine light is actually the mind is under a tremendous illusion, and under the illusion, it is not able to feel the presence of God. It takes it for granted. What is very apparent, it is just like the fish which is living in the water. It takes the water for granted, and then it takes it so much for granted. If somebody asks what is water, it starts inquiring what is water. So our life itself is a manifestation of God. But we think that God is somewhere above the skies in a heaven, or in the form of Lord Vishnu or Lord Rama and whatever. So but it is just like this, like before Einstein came and discovered general theory of relativity. It doesn't mean that before he discovered it was not existing. It was existing. He recognized the existence of it. So God is already present in our heart. So we are now trusting the master, and then supposing that he is there, and then we are training our mind only to purify our mind. When the mind becomes purified, that supposition becomes a reality. Like a mathematical equation, x, suppose x is so and so, so and so. When you finish the equation mathematical, then x is proved. In the same way, we are supposing the divine light there, and then that is finally proved in your experience. It becomes, and once experienced, then no need to search for it. Once you experienced it, then there's no further proof is required. You start living with that. So the beginning is the destination only. So we are the role of a guru is to remove the obstructions from your mind, so that the link which is there between God and you is realized by you personally. And if you realize that you are an inseparable part of God, you don't require the help of a guru at all.
It's more about keeping that connection or keeping that
connection is always there. Your mind is not feeling that connection.
the feeling of that.
If the feeling is there, then you're realized. I mean, you're liberated. I mean, you're what people consider as suffering, and then they're immersed in that suffering. It will be something like when a person wakes up from a dream, he laughs at the dream. He knows it is a dream. But when he's immersed in the dream, he laughs, cries, and suffers in the dream. But when he wakes up, he knows that it was just a dream. So this waking world is a similar kind of a dream. And then you wake up from the dream. And that waking up happens by the grace of God. And the grace of the Guru's blessings, actually. So we try to practice devotion to attract his attention. If you are meditating and if you do not have the idea to attract God's attention towards you, it's all a waste of effort. Even if you spend 50 years in meditation, you're wasting your time. You should have a clear idea in your mind that your intention is to attract God's attention towards you. If God's blessing is there, then you wake up from this dream. Otherwise, you're so immersed, you'll continue for several lives like that.
Yes.
So you will have all the theoretical knowledge. You can be a scholar, you can quote Upanishad, Vedas, and then everything. You can be a professor in that. But then you will not have the spiritual insight or realization will not be there. So all of us are actually, we are moving in that direction. We get the scent of that movement of that goal in the form of peace and balance and then joy and happiness. All of us are getting it. But it should become a natural phenomena without our trying, actually. When you're liberated, you don't actually strive for anything. You reach the destination. Then you just enjoy that life, that's all. And your just being existence itself will cause happiness to everybody else. So we should be very clear in our mind about the goal, and then this thing. So actually, in fact, I am now in a process of doing a study of neuroscience and all that, just for I'm interested in that subject. So I was reading about the brain function and all that. There is a part of the brain which is in the frontal lobe, actually, which is called frontal part of the forebrain, and then the orbital part of the forebrain. The peculiarity about that part of the brain is it has got no inputs from anywhere. Rest of the brain, there are a lot of interconnections everywhere. So there are no inputs for it. So, but that is so when they did experiments, suppose that part of the brain function is designed for long-term goals. Like suppose now I think that the next future, when I die or when my life comes to an end, my goal should be that my mind should become as regulated as Babuji's mind. So if I form that goal, this frontal part of the brain actually is created, that holds that goal actually. And as long as it holds that long-term goal in my mind, the other parts of the brain which are functioning in, which cause you to function, they align their purposes towards that goal. So we have to keep that goal consciously in our mind. Like suppose now I put on a TV and then I listen to some argument, somebody saying this fellow is good or bad. My mind reacts to that argument, and like earlier statement, Babuji says, all the people in this world are created by God, so you have to treat them as such. So that feeling will disappear from my mind. So suppose, suppose sixth commandment is there. Sixth commandment says that know all people as thy brethren and treat them as such. Like suppose now you are there, my son or daughter is there. So I will wish that they should be very happy. Genuinely, I'll be wishing that they should be free from suffering and free from the causes of suffering. Or I wish that they should be happy and they should have all the causes of happiness. That is the sincere wish of any parent. So, but when we come to the sixth commandment, we are supposed to have a similar feeling for all humanity. That means they should develop true love and devotion for God. But the moment we interact with, we are not alert in our thinking, and then we don't keep the goal in our mind, the other fellow will look that he is away from my philosophy, is away from my religion, and then you develop a negative feeling, and then you will not be able to pray like this. So your prayer becomes only selective, which is you will be only praying for your own people who are of the ISRC or people of the mission or people of your community or religion. And then sixth commandment you can follow. So it follows. So when you're partial in praying only for your group members like ISRC members and all that, that means you're not following Babuji's commandment of universal love. So that means your selfishness is still there. That means to that extent you must know that you are deficient in your practice. So all these things come into picture. So you should have a very firm view of the goal, and you should not allow it. You should be guarded. You should guard your mind not to allow other inputs from society to come and hijack your goals and allow your mind or brain to get attracted to some political, social, or economical or physical goals which are meaningless finally. Because when you face death, all other things lose value. No, I mean your health has got no meaning, economic well-being has got no meaning, social prominence has got no meaning. Everything, when you compare with death, it's got no value at all. So that's why the goal of life, this chapter is very important. If you take Babuji's articles and Sir's articles, they keep on hammering at you about the importance of having a correct goal of life and then clarity about the goal of life. Sir used to keep on saying about you should have clarity about goal of life, clarity about goal of life. So when we are reading these things, we should be alert and then try to think and then dwell on these thoughts, because clarity of goal also emerges with the purity of your mind. As you meditate, you become better and better. But if you are not alert, you cannot succeed in meditation. I hope I'm clear on this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next, Charan sister.
Yes, sir. Yearning, final goal. The natural yearning of soul is to be free from bondage. If there is one, who does not like to free himself from the entanglements, there is no solution for him. My humble request to you is that you should try to re-own the latent power, which is very quintessence of the final goal, by breaking up the network interwoven by yourself. Taking up the ideal of the simplicity of nature, which is before everybody's view, you should set to work for the attainment of the goal in a way that all the senses having merged in, one may become synonymous with that which remains after the fading away of the previous impressions. Then alone can you think yourself as diverted towards him in the true sense. It has been observed that those on the path of spirituality who did not fix that final state for their goal have definitely remained short of the mark, because before arriving at the final point, they mistook one or the other of the intermediary states to be the final point or really, and stopped there forever.
He again is hitting at the importance of the goal and keeping it alive in our consciousness. Okay, I will read the ways and means. I think I'll read now.
Sure, sir.
Now, ways and means. There are numerous means and practices prescribed for realization, out of which we have to choose that which guarantees speedy success. Now, what that may be, let each person judge for himself. For a hint, I quote below the judicious opinion of Swami Vivekananda on this point. Quote, it is Raja Yoga alone that successfully leads a man up to the highest level of approach, and none but one having the capacity to apply his own internal powers through pranahuti is fit for being a guide or master. Quote, I may also assure you that Hatha Yoga has no access beyond the Agnya Chakra. Besides, there is another serious defect in it. When we start with the bodily exercises of Hatha Yoga, the consciousness of our physical efforts with the idea of self in the background also remains all through. Thus the ego, instead of reducing, goes on increasing thereby. But that is not the case with Raja Yoga, where one proceeds with subtlest means for silencing the ever-active tendencies of the mind. Besides, in practicing this, one is always away from the idea of the body, since he has fixed his attention upon the subtlest. I want you, all of you, to note the language he's using, which gives you a clue. He's fixing the attention. He says, like, when you use the word fixed, like you fix a nail onto the wall so that to hang something. So it remains fixed there. When you hit a nail, it remains fixed to the wall. So when we fix our attention, fixed means it cannot be detached. So when we fix our attention on the goal, it should remain fixed there. It's a fact that it doesn't remain fixed because of our impurities. That's what we are doing practice. So as you are progressing, it remains more and more, the attachment keeps on increasing, and a stage comes when it truly gets fixed, and that is real faith, and that is devotion actually. But if you contemplate on the language which is using, it helps us to understand. He says we have to fix his attention upon the subtlest, just by the way of thinking actually. Yeah, we'll go ahead. Page ko lagao. Grihastha ashrama is not a bar in gaining the real. I think this is the best ashrama in which higher approach is easily possible. I am a Grihastha and my master was also one. I assure you that a perfect saint may be found in this ashrama alone. We perform our duties and remember him as the ultimate reality. Duty is itself worship if the idea that it is the order of God remains in the mind. The method of meditation on the heart is to think of godly light within it. When you begin meditation in this way, please think only that godly light within is attracting you. This is a mistake, printing mistake. Once only is a wrong thing, because meditation means repeatedly thinking over and over again of the same thing. It is Taila Dhara Vichna. That means a drop of, like suppose I'm thinking of divine light in my heart. You can visualize that a drop of oil is poured into another vessel. And then your mind is distracted by other thoughts. Then your meditation or the undistracted attention on the object of meditation is cut off. And then you think again, another drop of oil has fallen into the vessel. And then a stage comes when drop, then it becomes a continuous thin stream of oil pouring into that vessel. And when it is continuous, undistracted attention, that is called meditation. So you have to think again and again. So there is no meaning in saying that think once only. So we keep on coming back to that. This I feel is suppose my argument is, suppose I am thinking that God inside me is attracting my mind towards him. That's what Babuji is recommending. Suppose I think twice, do I suffer? Do I do anything? I am following the same technique of meditation. Suppose your mind is consciously or forgotten. You think again that he is attracting towards you, which is the fact that we are part of him. So you're not committing any mistake, or you'll not lose anything by thinking again and again that God is attracting you towards him. In fact, Babuji at several places, he says, if you think like that, you will see how fast love will develop for God, he says. When you begin meditation in this way, please think only that godly light within is attracting you. Do not mind if extraneous ideas intrude during meditation. Let them come, but you go on with your own work. Sit in an easy posture for 1 hour in the morning in quite a natural way. If you require the philosophy of this method, I shall reveal it to you after some time. You should only meditate. You should not struggle with the ideas and thoughts which generally come in during meditation. Concentration is the result of meditation. Those who want concentration for the sake of meditation and force their mind to it generally meet with failure. It must be remembered that while practicing these methods, one should not force his mind too much, but only sit in a normal way. Sit in an easy posture for 1 hour in the morning in quite a natural way. It is better to sit in the gray of the morning for meditation, or if that is not possible, that at any fixed hour convenient to you, the Abhyasi. Do not feel disturbed by the outer things, but remain engaged with your work, thinking that they are in a way helping you to feel the necessity of greater absorption in the practice. I know of some people who, they're very much disturbed by the neighborhood where, a lot of talking going on, and then they're thinking of moving out of the neighborhood, which is what Babuji is telling. He says, do not feel disturbed by outer things, but remain engaged with your work, thinking that they're in a way helping you to feel the necessity of greater absorption in your practice. So you should be able to meditate in any place. And if you are disturbed by the external environment, then it should motivate you to train your mind to get absorbed in God in that situation. Because today morning, I again was speaking to Ravi about inattentional blindness. I showed them a YouTube clip about invisible gorilla. That's a very, very famous Harvard University experiment where, a group of 6 people were playing basketball, and then you're supposed to count the number of times a player is passing on to the other thing. And when you're counting, there is one gorilla in a black dress. He comes, he dances and goes away. 70% of the players don't observe the gorilla. That means they are so busy counting the passes they have made, because that's the job given by the experimental. And then if they're correctly counted, they've missed it. And when the video was replayed, they're surprised that how could they miss the gorilla dancing in amongst their midst. So it is our natural tendency when we are thinking about God, the other thoughts, we are not aware of those thoughts, because our attention is on this. As long as our attention is on the divine light, you are doing meditation. And when the attention is shifted from there, then you become aware of the thoughts actually. So that is how the dynamics of the mind work actually. So if you are doing correct meditation, nothing disturbs you.
Dr. Madhava,
Yes.
actually this experiment you just mentioned, me and Dr. Shastri, while I was in US, we went to Noetic Institute of Sciences.
Okay.
So we actually participated in this research.
Did you see the gorilla then at that time?
No, I didn't see.
You did, so that means you are not counting properly.
No. So what happened was they put some sensors on our hands and they asked us to see the video. And they gave us an instruction to count how many times the ball is thrown.
Okay.
So we counted. I mean, individually it was done. So counted the number of times.
Okay.
Then he said, okay, now I want you to see the video again.
Okay.
And just tell me if you see anything unusual in the video. This time you shouldn't count the balls.
Okay.
So then we did. And then even I was surprised, how did he miss such a big gorilla? Who suddenly
so you missed the gorilla. That's what I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah. So we missed the gorilla.
Oh, that's
First time we missed the gorilla. Second time, when he asked us to look at the video normally without that instruction, we saw the gorilla properly. And we were surprised.
You missed the count. You missed the count at that time.
No, second time he just said, watch the video normally. No need to count.
Okay.
So when we saw that, then we were surprised, like, how did we miss such a big gorilla when we were focused on counting?
Yeah.
So basically then he showed us graphs. So what actually the implication is slightly deeper. So he said that when you are given an instruction to focus on one thing, right? Like keep your attention on the count, your mind was effectively doing it.
Okay.
But then it doesn't mean that you were not seeing the gorilla. You were seeing the gorilla, but so senses were getting that input. Something was filtering it out.
You're not paying. That's right. That is the.
So if you want to kind of use this analogy into our practice, you can say that when your attention is on master, your subconscious will be sensing the external situation, but simply filtering it out. It won't.
You're using the word filtering, but what is? You can use that word, but the thing is, you see, there is a German word called Gestalt. You heard of Gestalt? It's an important educational psychology term. So suppose I'm looking at the television, the computer screen now. There is what is called a foreground. Whenever I look outside, I see objects. Like in my room now, there's a bed is there, the towel is there, a shirt is there, and a portrait is there. All those things will be there. But when I'm paying attention on the screen, the periphery of the retina impressions are there, but they have a fading effect, or they're in the background actually. They don't attract my attention.
Right.
If I don't pay attention, they don't attract. But suppose suddenly I'm telling you, now I'm feeling the edge of the seat on my legs. Sorry, 1 minute. So if you don't pay attention, you're not conscious of it. So in meditation, if you do meditation passionately with the feeling that, Master is a lovable person and a lovable force, and then it's interested in your happiness, and then it is a pleasant activity to get engaged and touch the God inside our heart, and then with that intention, with the feeling of worship and attitude, if you pay attention, Babuji says you can 1 hour you can do. If you take a break of 10 minutes, you should be able to sit for 1 hour again easily without any problem. Any number of hours you can do meditation, and you'll enjoy it, because that is a natural tendency of the mind. We have to just, if you understand this idea, this gorilla experiment, then you understand that you can use it. If you are feeling distracted, that means you're not meditating, or you're not cleaned yourself properly. So there's so much of background kachra is there by seeing all this television and all that. Then all that kachra stuff will come out, and you'll not enjoy meditation. So this understanding will help you to be careful and guard your mind, not to dump some garbage into your mind, which Babuji in 4th commandment, he says your ear should hear only noble talks, and your eyes should see only what pious things, and your heart should be inclined towards pious things. So that requires some commitment rest of the times after meditation to guard your mind, so that you take every activity as a duty. When you take every activity as a duty, then impurities will be less, and then each time your skill of meditation keeps on improving, and a positive spiral grows, and then it will be beautiful. Your mind will be so peaceful that you start influencing everybody who comes into your presence. So this, thanks Joshi for highlighting your experience, because this is helpful in making people understand that if you are meditating, your mind will get absorbed in God, actually.
Yeah, it actually also gives confidence that you can ignore the thoughts if your intention is fixed.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you think of that disturbing gorilla as something which is coming in between the way, but
I think almost 60-70% of those people have not seen the gorilla. Only few people, I think, were aware of the presence of gorilla.
Yeah, actually it might be more, because
I don't know, but I didn't go into the depth of that study, actually.
Yeah, they actually put some sensors in our hand.
Why did they put the sensors?
So what they said was that experiment, of course, was having a different intent, I guess. So what they are saying is, it appeared to you that you didn't see the gorilla, but your eyes did see the gorilla.
Yeah.
And it did not interfere with your intent of counting.
No,
and the way they proved that was, when the gorilla comes, right, exactly at that timing, there were some changes in the skin, sensors, which they are measuring. And they showed us that graph. So
that is, they may, in fact, as that is true. Like, there is what is called a blind sight karke rehta, human being mein. There's even though a major visual pathway is cut off, there is about 5 to 10% of nerve fibers going to the mind, which deviates from the normal path and then goes to a different path. And then when you're driving and suddenly a child or a dog crosses your car, you're not seen it, but your brain sees it, and then without your thinking, without your being conscious of it, the fight or flight mechanism comes into operation. You hit the brake, and it happens without your conscious thinking, actually. So that means the brain is monitoring everything, but it doesn't come onto your conscious plane. So that is a well-known fact. and in our Indian yogic epistemology, that means theory of knowledge. Suppose if I want to become cognizant of, suppose I want to see this book, it is like this, that my mind actually flows outside, and then it engulfs this book, and then and since the consciousness or the Atma or the consciousness or godly consciousness which is in my heart actually follows my mind, and then I become cognizant of this book actually. So it engulfs and then forms a vritti actually. It is vritti is a wave actually. So the wave or the thoughts in your mind are not different from your mind itself takes that form actually. In fact, today morning we had an interesting discussion with Ravi and all that. I compared, I think I already told about that chameleon and the octopus issue. The mind itself takes the form of a book or takes the form of whatever object you're seeing. Suppose your consciousness is, if your mind is withdrawn from sense organs, you can't perceive objects. You can be seeing, but then you can't perceive. Suppose your mind is thinking about some problem of your office problem you are trying to solve. Events will be happening, your subconscious mind may be monitoring, but it does not come into your cognition. But subconscious mind, the brain will be working for your survival. Suppose a snake comes on your way, you don't have time to think and then take evasive action. It does the job for you because you have been designed evolutionarily to survive in this world. So for that, a brilliant mechanism works. I mean, like you computer people know about back-end operations. Back-end operations happen continuously in a very huge scale. Only few information comes to our conscious level. So now we want that the back-end operations should become an efficient instrument of the divine actually. So that means it should become disciplined. It should be thinking about all people as brethren and wishing them that they should develop love and devotion for master should become a default mode of thinking. Just like when you feel hungry, your brain has been designed to search for food and eat food. And suppose you will wish that your son and all should be healthy and happy. That is a default mode of thinking. So your subconscious mind should become default mode of thinking in the way of Babuji. That is for which we are trying to do practice. Consciously, if you repeatedly think consciously, the subconscious mind will be programmed like that. And when the program becomes totally installed or fixed in your subconscious mind, your goal is achieved. So it is a work you have to do. It is a practice you have to do continuously. That's why constant remembrance is not difficult, but you have to understand the importance, how the mind works, how the invisible or the subconscious mind controls your behavior and all that. Anyway, we'll go ahead. Where were we? Do not feel disturbed by the outer things, but remain engaged with your work, thinking that they are in a way helping you to feel the necessity of greater absorption in your practice. In the evening, sit again in the same easy posture for half an hour and think that the complexities, the network of your previous thoughts and grossness or solidity in your body are all melting away or evaporating in the form of smoke from your backside. It will help you in purging your mind and make you receptive of the efficacious influence of our great master. So this I feel that people should have a greater understanding, because suppose I've seen a television debate and then I developed aversion for some person's way of talking, and I developed liking for some person's way of debating, which aligns with my religious beliefs, aligns with my caste beliefs, or aligned with my nationalistic, patriotic beliefs patterns, which, then all those affections and aversions, they're all networked. So each time when you're moving in the world, we are forming a network actually. So that network, you have to burn it and throw it out in the form of smoke. So unless you do it, then the network controls, further controls you in a wrong way. And then your meditation, you will not be moving on the path actually, you will be stuck there. So each day, whenever, because we are moving in the society, we interact with the society, we definitely form a network. And network is consisting nothing but likes and dislikes only. I mean, your prejudices, likes and dislikes. You say, I mean, every thought is a judgment, which is a part of the network which you're creating. So unless you burn and throw them out, you'll not make much progress. So this is very important. This has to be understood and then practiced correctly. So as soon as I find that you're free from undesirable matter, I will take appropriate action. We soar high by awakening and cleaning the chakras and subpoints thereof, taking up Kundalini also in the end, with which the Abhyasi has nothing to do by himself. It is exclusively the outlook of the master. To impart spirituality really takes no time for a guide of high caliber like my master. The time is mostly spent in effecting the making of the Abhyasi. Making of the Abhyasi, what I mean is, what I feel is that bringing all your subconscious mind into alignment with your conscious 10 commandments. You know, these are the commandments which you have to follow. The subconscious mind should be trained, and then it should become a fact, and then it should be able to follow as a natural way. So that is the making of the Abhyasi actually. We should proceed with our Abhyas with faith and devotion, and the thing desired will come to us by itself. I often met the heads of various sanstars, and to my greatest surprise and sorrow, I have found not only transmission sadly missing everywhere, but also to most of them it is quite a stranger. Swami Vivekananda had that capacity, but such personalities are always rare. Personalities like my revered master are not accidentally born. They come down only when the world waits for them in eager expectation. Such higher personalities or incarnations come down in material form to remodel the ways and methods of Upasana in accordance with the need of the time. So was the case with Lord Krishna, who was a great master of his time. My revered master too has modified the system, adjusting it to the needs of the present time. His most wonderful invention in the spiritual field is the one related with the Abhyasi's approach to the central region, as stated in the efficacy of Raja Yoga. I am following in the footsteps of my great master. Often people ask me to infuse into them the godly force or energy up to the highest degree all at once. To be frank, I am always eager to do so, but to my regret, I seldom find the necessary capacity in the Abhyasi. The delay caused is only on account of that deficiency, and for that I cannot be blamed as a miser by any means. All that I possess is for all humanity. I am bound by the sacred pledge given to my master as Guru Dakshina to spread spirituality far and wide without any reserve or distinction. I am doing it now and will go on with all my life. Go on with it all my life. You must not, however, be disappointed. If you have really entrusted your case to me, I promise my full support for your perfection, provided you too do the needful. As to how the mind should be kept engaged, I may relate to you what I did during my period of Abhyas. My master was everything to me as he is today. I meditated upon his form within my heart and outside as well. But I do not recommend this to you, for you have not seen him. The benefit I derived from this process is beyond words to describe. Some people may have objection to it, though the 37th Sutra of Patanjali's Yoga Darshana fully supports it. Vitaraga Vishayam Vachittam. I am not at all in favor of meditation on the pictures of saints. Constant remembrance of God is, of course, a special feature in spirituality. The same I recommend to you to try besides your usual practice. The method for cultivating constant remembrance is to think with firm conviction during your leisure hours, in office or at home, in the street or in the market, that God is pervading all over and everywhere, and you are thinking of Him. Try to remain in the same thought as long as you can. I am glad that you're eager to reach the stage of Vairagya. You will attain it without doubt, but only when you're sufficiently cleaned, and it depends upon you as well, for which you are advised the evening practice. He's insisting on evening practice, you see. I feel you're improving spiritually, for which I give you a hint to understand. You must be feeling lightness, though only a little, which is a sign that complexities are melting away gradually and the spiritual force is flowing into you. Try to feel it and inform me accordingly. If you do not get time for meditation during the day, then do it when you go to bed or after midnight, after a short sleep, when everything around is calm and quiet. In that case, proceed first with the cleaning process fixed for the evening. Do it for about 15 minutes, and after it, devote an hour or so to meditation as directed. We should not weaken ourselves by thinking of past karmas. We should always try to attempt the highest in order to make the future bright. It is very difficult to have all favorable circumstances in this worldly life. What we are to do is to adjust ourselves to the conditions as best as we can and utilize them to our greatest advantage. Constant remembrance will greatly help you in such cases also. The domestic problem is acute everywhere, but we have to put up with it somehow. One thing more by way of practice is to offer daily the following brief prayer at bedtime in the most suppliant mood, with the heart overflowing with love for the divine. O Master, thou art the real goal of human life. We are yet but slaves of wishes putting bar to our advancement. Thou art the only God in power to bring us up to that stage. Repeat the above in your mind once or twice and meditate over it for a few minutes. Can anybody tell me what is the necessity of sleep? What is the advantage to human being in his survival for God giving us this faculty of sleep? Why sleep is necessary? There was one experimenter who tried to forego his sleep, and for 11 days he didn't sleep at all, and afterwards his irritability increased, and then there were some problems, and then the next few hours he slept and his function became okay. And animals, if they're deprived of sleep, they die after some time. So that's one thing. But what do you think is the purpose of sleep?
So one thing is for sure, it's rest to the mind. Otherwise, it's continually active. So physical rest is one, but also more in terms of the mental rest.
That is true, but there are several questions again. Some people do with, Sir told me that if a person is meditating and he says 1 hour meditation is equal to 4 to 5 hours of rest. So you're getting rest, your mind is into delta waves when you're meditating, and it is as good as a deep sleep. So why do you require rest? And mind you, in yogic terminology, sleep is a vritti, and chitta vritti nirodha means you should also get rid of this vritti of sleep also. Truly speaking, if Patanjali talks chitta vritti nirodha, one of the 5 vrittis is sleep.
It is in order to give some kind of a simulation to godliness. or to be with God for some time, an opportunity
everybody
to
is seeing
have.
serials churned out from mother-in-law, father-in-law, ये वो सब drama serials देख के सोते हैं. So who is thinking about God? Mostly people see serials and go to sleep. And those serials are all borrowed from Western dramas. Actually, they converted it to Indian this thing, and they're showing, and they sleep thinking about what will be the plot tomorrow and how the plot will unfold in tomorrow's serial. Who is thinking about God?
I think sleep gives energy. So, like the next day we feel fresh and energetic to work or do our things.
Must be recuperation to body physically, mentally.
No, one of the studies which shows is that people thought that when you go to sleep, the brain goes into in our classical this thing, we have got 4 states of meditation. What is called 3 main states of consciousness. One is Jagruti, waking state. One is dream state, that is Swapna, and Shushupti, deep sleep state. And in deep sleep state, you are not conscious of your physical body, not conscious of your worries and anxieties and diseases and all that. And then you're free from worry. And many people take it as a kind of a bliss, because you are free from miseries and worries. It is a kind of a bliss. And when you wake up from a deep sleep, you feel that you had a good sleep, you feel refreshed and all that. That is an experience of all of us who have gone into some time during the sleep into deep sleep. So people thought that the brain activity will slow down dramatically. Yes, the brain activity goes down, and there is what is called delta waves, where only 4 to 5 waves appear in a minute. But they have found out that during sleep, there is what is called REM sleep, deep sleep, in dream sleep. The activity of the brain is as good as the waking activity. So that has given a lot of how to go about it. It seems that during sleep, whatever we have learned about our environment, about our interactions with the world, all that knowledge is required for our successful living. Our living and surviving and reproducing and then thriving in this life depends upon the proper functioning of your brain. And whatever interaction you do in the world, if you learn some lessons, that will help you to live more successfully. So knowledge is consolidated during sleep. So that is one of the essential thing which has come out of research into the sleep business. So suppose you do this bedtime prayer and you think that, oh Master, thou art the real goal of human life, and we are but slaves of wishes, putting power to our advancement. Thou art the only God and power to bring us up to that stage. And you keep meditating on that meaning and then go into sleep. That thought, and at that time, when that feeling is there, it is very close to what is called surrender, actually. So when you go to sleep with that idea, the brain networks are very active. There is one area called hippocampus which assimilates the memories and then becomes part. They become very strong memories. The whole brain gets rewired to incorporate this idea into your system, actually. So the whole night of sleep, 6 to 7 hours sleep, it is effectively you're doing meditation. And very powerful and very good meditation, because this state of surrender is getting strengthened and rewired, and then enormous benefit is going to happen by if you exploit the understanding of neuroscience and all that, and if you take this prayer very seriously and try to spend about 10-15 minutes, try to get absorbed and go to sleep, then during sleep, your back-end operations will be completely getting modified. And then you wake up with, you're a different person when you wake up because the program is changed already. So that is the idea actually. So repeat the above in your mind once or twice and meditate over it for a few minutes. The prayer must be offered in such a way as if some most miserable man is laying down his miseries with a deeply afflicted heart before the Supreme Master, imploring his mercy and grace with tearful eyes. Then alone can he become a deserving aspirant of spiritual. This is important. And if you do it, the next day you're a different man. Whatever comes into action is always in accordance with the will of God, who is the actual doer. The difficulty arises when we link it with our own will or action, thinking it to be the result of our efforts. We rejoice at success and feel aggrieved at failure merely for that reason. This is the only thing which serves to keep us in bondage. The absence of this egoistic feeling means the advent of real potent vigor. How can this be achieved? Only by linking the self with the great power of the divine. Doing so, we go on covering stage after stage and we get closer and closer to him. It is a pity to find only a few persons trying to link themselves with the Supreme, not to speak of achieving complete negation. For that, the only path is that of surrender, though it is a pretty hard task, especially for those who are overloaded with their own weight. Discipline is the elementary step of surrender. If it is not possible to adhere to mental discipline in the beginning, one can take up at least the physical discipline to start with. After that, the teacher's capability is well established upon the mind, and the pupil too is a sincere seeker of reality. Mental submission will begin to develop by itself. When he has set his foot on the lowest rung of the ladder, next one will be in sight by itself. When the pursuit is taken up thus, love and devotion will begin to develop automatically, especially when one is convinced of the merits of the teacher. I'm not sure whether all those associated with me have craving for realization or not. If they have, these things must have developed in them automatically. There must be in their heart an interest for that, and the interest develops only when one feels firmly attached to the goal. Some may, however, sit by me only to have their mind at rest for a while. Even this may be worthwhile to me to some extent, for I may thereby be offering them some comfort for a while at least. But that alone is not enough. There may also be some who like to associate with me on the basis of fellow feeling and friendship, not of course taking into account anything of spirituality. This also may not be too little for me, because I greatly rejoice and feel refreshed when I find anyone bearing in his heart love for me. But why, after all, should anyone bother about it for my sake, when there's a lot for him in the world to love and like? He alone who is himself lost, or at least likes to be lost, or is even willing to lose all, may perhaps be inclined towards me. My tendency of mind is somewhat peculiar. Having lost myself in toto, I now like others to trace me out. I believe a wise man will never come up for it. That may be the reason why I fail to excite emotion in the heart of others, because in me, that too is lost like my own being. And that is the case, what else then remains in me for a clue to help them to trace me out? The idea will be more clear if one develops a similar type of divine intoxication. I think we'll stop here, then we'll meet. Anybody wants to add his understanding or wants to contribute to this discussion, which you feel will help people to be absorbed in his consciousness?
Can you put some light on constant remembrance, like how you practice it? They say it was said that we have to think that God is present everywhere.
It is a simple thing. Now I'm sitting. You see if you think a little bit like this, like the external world is, you're seeing various objects. You're seeing, like I was discussing this with Dr. Dakshinamurthy the other day. Like suppose if you try to understand a little bit of physics and a little bit of the psychology of perception, you will be able to easily put into practice what Babuji is trying to say. I'll try to tell you something about it. Like, for example, any perception which we have, like suppose there is a green towel in front of me actually, and my mind perceives that it is a green towel, but that perception is possible only because there are other things which are not green around it. There's a blue object is there, there's a gray color table is there. Suppose that the gray color table is also green, and the computer is also green, and the wall is also painted green, and everything is green around. I'll not be able to perceive green. I'm able to perceive green because there's non-green there. So, but actually the mind is not aware of the role of non-green in the perception of the green. I will be becoming aware of a man because there is a woman there. I'll be aware of a tall because there is a short fellow there. So when I'm saying that this is a different plant, suppose all the plants are mangoes in this world, then there's nothing to say this is mango, because if all the trees are similar, the cognition will not arise. The cognition is arising because there are other plants, bougainvillea tree is there, or some rose plant is there, or jasmine is there, because all these perceptions are taking place, and this perception is possible because of different things available. So any perception, the other things also play a role. And finally, if you go quite deeply, every article or a thing which you perceive is composed of molecules, and the molecules in turn are composed of atoms. Like suppose if I look at my hair or my hand, it is composed of proteins and cells, and cell has got a cell wall and protoplasm and nucleus has got DNA, DNA have got nucleotides, nucleotides have got some amino acids have got molecules, and molecules have got atoms has got electrons have got atoms and protons and neutrons, and if you go deeper, there are quarks, up quark, down quark, and all that. So basic ontology of reality is subtler than quarks. Now they are coming to what is called string supertheory, and that is a formula. You don't see a quark, you infer the presence of a quark. So everything is made up of a field of energy, and miraculously out of the field of energy, objects come into existence. So if you think that field of energy is God, that's very easy. Scientifically, it is everybody is convinced about mathematics and about this physics. So, and all the objects magically arise out of this soup of what is called the quantum gravity or whatever it is. And then your cognition is happening because of the contribution of the entire cosmos is involved, even in the cognition of this phone or cognition of this kerchief or whatever it is. Everything is God is involved in every aspect of it. That is the truth actually. And you're aligning your thinking to be in with that thought. So now you are thinking that God is present in every animate and inanimate things, which is proven now. Quantum physics talks about quantum field theory, or string theory, superstring theory, which is abstract, which you don't see. Like God, we don't see. Quarks also, or strings also, we don't see. It is an inference we gain through mathematics, actually. So we are now just thinking that God is present everywhere in all animate and inanimate things. Because this question was also raised in what is called Mundaka Upanishad, that famous Upanishad which gives the idea of Satyame Jayate. It comes under that Upanishad. There the question was raised, how living thing gives rise to inanimate things, how mountain is not life, and stone is doesn't have a property of life, it doesn't reproduce, it doesn't have cognition. How can they come out of God, who is a living thing? So the Mundaka Upanishad answers that, like from your head, hair is growing. Hair is not a live thing, but it grows out of a living person. So out of God, non-living things also come. That is the doubt which is addressed in Mundaka Upanishad. So it is very easy for your mind to accept that God is present in all animate and inanimate things, and you try to retain that thought, try to get absorbed in that thought as long as possible. So it's very easy to do it, actually. You can just try. Just now you can try. And you keep trying, you become better and better at it. In your free time, instead of, if you can read master's work, it is very nice. Other time, instead of watching a TV, you can just sit in the lawn or watch the sky, and then look at the stars, and then start thinking like this. And then it's a very good pastime. It's not difficult at all. I keep doing it. I find it not difficult at all. If I can do it, any fool can do it.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for the explanation.
Okay. Anything else, Dharmesh? I mean, just Subodh Borkar need not. He is not. I mean, it is not applicable only to Subodh. Others. It is only meant. Everybody can else try it. I mean, he's not. It is not restricted to Subodh. All of us can try it.
Correct. Yeah.
Only thing is, the question is whether you give any value to his advice or not. If you feel that he is your well-wisher, he is your friend, or he is your father or master, and he is interested in your happiness, and if you want to give more value to that relationship, and you feel that master's advice is valuable, then you will make an attempt to follow his advice. If you think that seeing television and then going to cinemas is more valuable than practicing this, each person has to decide what is more valuable in life.
Yes.
Right.
That we cannot teach. No, each person has to decide. Some people will say my holiday is more important. My watching the football match or cricket match is more. Election news is more important. What is happening in Maharashtra political affairs is more important than following this. Means that is each person's interest. What is the Salman going to which haircut, and then what breakfast he had this morning? So that is more valuable. तो क्या कर सकते हैं? People think those things are also valuable. Yeah. Okay, we'll miss next Sunday then.